All right. Am I on? Good. Ken Fox.
Clinton.
And you are?
Clinton Edwards.
Clinton. Glad to have you with us, brother. Great. Fantastic. We had a few, take away a few, and the ladies all have gone to the back room. So this afternoon we're going to talk about your worst problem, your mouth. And the reason we're going to talk about that is because that's my worst problem, my tongue. It gets me in trouble all the time. When I work as an engineer, it got me in trouble. Then when I work in the church, it got me in trouble. And then when I deal with my wife, it got me in trouble. And I know that's not your problem, but I mean, if you're like me, then, as we're trying to grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus, we're trying to think and act and be like Jesus. And again, the Bible promises us that we can what? Have Christ formed in us. Jesus' life can become visible in us. We can have this mind that was in Jesus. And then we can say, it's no longer I that live, but Christ liveth in me. And if you can say that today, then you can leave now. You won't need this class. But if you're like me, you still need some help. Then let's let the Lord help us. So we talked about salt and light. 18 ways for us to be like Jesus. And y'all didn't schedule enough time to cover all 18 ways. So then I tried to pick out the ones that I needed the most. So I'm talking to myself this weekend, all right? So last hour we talked about thinking like Jesus. Now we're going to talk about talking like Jesus, the fruit of our mouth, okay? Controlling my tongue, your tongue, or talking like Jesus by learning to think like Jesus. So first we get the heart right, and then what comes out of our mouth, according to Jesus, is what's in our heart. So maybe we can have a little discussion. We'll see how much time we got left. The ladies are meeting in the back room if you'd like to meet with the ladies, but it's okay. We accept everybody, but it's really a neat afternoon. You're going to have a class about how to live with the same guy for 56 years. That's a challenge in America. I'm glad it's not in Canada, but it is in the States. Okay, so Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29. Paul says, let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word is good for edification according to the need of the moment, that it may give grace to those who hear. So as we came today, we didn't hand out name tags. It would have helped me if we had, but you know everybody, but obviously I didn't know you. And so it would have been a kind of neat if we had a name tag that said, hello, my name is Jesus. How would that have been different today? If the Lord had been here talking to us, would the conversation been different? Would we talk about different things? I love getting together with the brother in the Mesa, and what do we talk about? Diamondbacks. Anybody know what a diamondback is?
Baseball.
Stupid baseball. And I didn't say stupid baseball, did I? No. I mean, they talk about Cardinals. What are Cardinals? That's American football. See, you all don't even care about that stuff, do you? All right. So here we talk about the Oilers. Yeah, okay. So we talk about stuff that's important. Jesus wasn't that way. He talked about stuff that was what? Wholesome words. So when Paul says back here in Ephesians 5, let no unwholesome word come out of our mouth, what's he talking about? Well, in America we have some slang words, we have some bad words, we have some cuss words. And then we have just our general speech. Okay, the things that I say that are edifying or encouraging to you, or, I tend to accentuate the negative. I don't know why. Maybe it's the engineering background I have, But, I talked to Terry, our preacher at Mesa, and I want numbers. I want specifics. I want statistics. And he wants generalities, and he wants spiritual words. And I say, well, I want to know how many were here, and, how many were in class, and, I want the details. And he says, well, if we do it right, the numbers will be there. I get so frustrated with him, So here's some things that God tells us about our speech, all right? In Proverbs 6, there's 6 things that God hates. No, there's 7, okay, that are abomination. And so how many of these 6 or 7 actually involve our mouth, our tongues, our speech? All right? We talk about haughty eyes and a lying tongue. All right, we can figure that one out real quick. Then he talks about hands that are swift to shed innocent blood, and then a heart that has wicked plans, Darth Vader, feet running to evil, and then false witnesses, that would get us a lying tongue that hates its victims. And then there's Ken and Jean in their early marriage. Okay, words that do what? Bring strife. Whether it's in the church, whether it's in our families, wherever it is, it all comes back to this use of our tongue. So you might ask the question, why would a tacky-tongued toad be teaching your class this afternoon? And that's a picture of me earlier when I was a minister in the staff of the Mesa Church of Christ, and here I am now in my old age. A tacky-tongued toad. Why would somebody give me that name? What is it about my speech that people would have that impression? What's your nickname when folks aren't around? Roy, what do they call you?
I have many.
Many? Good ones or bad ones?
They are both good and bad.
But isn't that true? We all kind of have this impression of everybody else's speech except ours, because ours is always wholesome and good, and it's also as blessed. But I'm real honest in trying to confess that that's one of my challenges, is to keep my speech encouraging. And if the old man's like that, what are the kids like? Are your children like you? Should your children be like you? So do they follow the good attributes we have, or do they follow the negative attributes that we have? When my 4 sons get together, there's a couple things they can't talk about. They can't talk about football because they're all on opposite teams. They can't talk about politics because they're all on opposite sides. They can't even talk about church because they have different ideas on how it works. One of them, the oldest one's going to start teaching our adult class Sunday at Mesa. The second one has a church in his home. So he's got this home church thing on his mind. And the oldest son's got this thing about what? Big church, and what do you do with big church? And so our speech has a whole lot to do how our families work together. So when you go to the doctor, what's the first thing he does? He used to say, ah. And you stick your tongue out, and he checks your tongue. Why is that? What is there about your tongue that tells something about your general health? Any doctors here?
Yeah, I don't know what you're asking specifically, though. A lot of health really shows up in lines in the mouth and the tongue.
Yeah. So the cut of your tongue, the way your breath is, what's on your tongue, those are all indications of how your health is. And so you go to the doctor, he says, stick out your tongue and say, ah. How many times have you done that? He's looking what? He's looking for our general health of our body. So if that's true physically, what about spiritually? Now Jesus said, your speech reveals the condition of your heart. That says something about me. You brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak what is good? For the mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. And so if our heart is full of Band-Aids and full of patches and full of a lot of stuff, what comes out of our mouth? Your speech reveals the condition of your heart. So if they call me the tacky-tongued toad, what's my heart look like? You got it right. That's exactly what my problem is, okay? Now, I'm glad you don't have that problem, okay? Because you're Canadians, you're not Americans, so you don't have all the tackiness, that we have down in what do we call the states down below or something? Down south. Down south? Okay. Them folks down south, okay? Words are the shape of our hearts. Matthew 5:11 is not that which enters the mouth that defiles a person, but that which comes out of his mouth. And so the neat thing is, the only person today that knows the condition of your heart is all the rest of us. Because we've listened to you visit with us since last night and today. And the things we've talked about have been that which is edifying. It's contagious to be part of this congregation. It really is. I mean, it's amazing. I've never been with a group that's this small, that has this much experience in mission work, in evangelism, in cross-cultural, in multi-ethnical. I mean, you think about everybody that comes here to South Edmonton and North Edmonton, and what are the other two places that came from? St. Augustine or something?
St. Albert.
St. Albert.
That's close. St. somebody, yeah. And then we had one more.
Camrose. Camrose.
Yeah, that's the one. Camrose, okay. You think about all those that came to. Last night we had, I think, counted 70 folks here last night. Wow. In a country of 36 million people, on a Friday night, we got 70 people from foreign congregations to come and do what? Listen to a guy from Mesa, Arizona. That isn't really why we came together. We really came together to learn about Jesus, yeah. But, you know, he's the one that was doing it. But you think about that. It's the condition of our heart that is betrayed by what? By what comes out of our mouth. And so Psalms 39 says, I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle. I'm not a soccer player, but somebody tell me what that red card means.
Ejection.
Huh?
Ejection.
Ejection? Why?
He did something wrong.
Oh, but I like to play. My heart's in it. But when you pull the red card on me, then I've done what? I've broken the rules. I've done something dishonest, or I've done something illegal, I've done something immoral. No, I broke the dumb rules. You all play soccer here? Yep. This is yes. Yep. This is no. Now, again, you have to understand, I'm a Yankee from, where was it? Down south, okay? Okay, so, you know, football, basketball, baseball, but soccer? So, we lived in Bangkok for 10 years, and guess whose kids learned to play soccer? Mine. Yeah. Guess whose kids were on the high school soccer team, and they got to go to Hong Kong and play soccer. They got to go to Singapore and play soccer, you know. And I didn't know what the game was. You know, it's a round ball. The only thing I know is American football or baseball. Soccer? And you think about that red card. I understand that now. And I need to do what? I need to take heed to my tongue and keep my mouth with a bridle. Well, how would I do that? Well, when I was younger, talking was easy. There's a picture of Jean and I met her when she was 13 and I was 15. They're a little bit younger than that. But, you know, talking was pretty easy back when we were much younger. iPhones back in my day were a lot better than yours, a lot cheaper. We're not near as complicated or as technical, okay? And talking to Jean was really easy. You know, she talked and I listened, you know, and that was pretty easy back in the old days. But now this is your age. And all you got, I don't have mine, I put it up, but everybody's packing something, an iPhone or Y-phone or X-phone, or have you got one yet? Another year, look out. I've got a doctor's son that his 16-year-old packs one, his 50-year-old daughter packs one. Now his 12-year-old daughter is going to give up. She'll get hers pretty quick. What's wrong with us people that we have these things on our belt or in our pocketbook or in our pocket? I don't even know what an iPhone is. I got an iPad. I know how to turn it on and turn it off, and that's all I can do. This is your generation now. 2016, our age. It's all full of electronics junk. And this is the generation that's sitting right back down here. They call it the look down generation. Why is it look down? Because as they walk, they do this thing. You ever seen anybody do that at the mall?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that? It's even worse overseas in Bangkok. You know, Thai people that can't hardly afford a Coca-Cola have got one of these things in their hands. And they're doing this thing as they're walking down the street. And they're walking in the malls. And they're doing all that. And we used to call that a third world nation. Now it's what? Now it's developed. Because everybody packs a cell phone of some kind. The look down generation. And of course now we have those. We call those selfies. I wonder why they call them selfies. They all call them youies or something. Or themies. But it's a selfie. Anybody here got one of them rods? I've got one. I mean, I'm the new generation, you betcha. All right, and we're so talented that we can what? We can drive and text and drink at the same time. We can even get on our moped or our scooter or our motorcycle and do what? And text while we're driving. We're really talented. And of course, now we've upped it another notch. So now what's in our heart can also be on our cell phone and our iPad. And this thing that's come up called sexting. A lot of things going on with these things that are bad. So talk in 2016 is expanded. We got these new priorities. We can do it in school. And of course, we can do what we want in our own privacy, we think, of our own life. And of course, Facebook. Anybody here that doesn't do Facebook? What's wrong with you all? Huh? You don't do Facebook? Dave, let me take your pulse. Is he alive? I mean, what's with y'all that you don't do Facebook? I don't blame you. Glad to have y'all. Do y'all do Facebook? See that? And I wouldn't ask you how old you are, but I'm 76 and I'm too dumb to use Facebook, but you obviously know how. Good. And so the more we get into the electronics and the more we get into the gadgets, be careful, because also for those young folks, it leads to this thing called depression. We're talking about our tongue. So let's talk about motivation with our speech, okay? Maybe we need some greater motivation like this guy's about to get. Jesus used these words in his speech, okay? Vipers, Satan, brood of vipers, hypocrites, give to dogs that which is sacred, throw the pearls to the pigs, depart from me, ye accursed. If we talk like Jesus, can we use his words? Can I call somebody a pig? Unfortunately, in my past 76 years, I've done that. Can I call somebody a snake? Can I call somebody a hypocrite? I mean, Jesus did, but obviously he knew their hearts. He knew the situation. He was God. If my speech is going to be like that of the Master, which part of that should I pattern my speech after? So how can we learn to talk like Jesus? If you use your King James Bible, and practice makes perfect, we can use the these and thous and the hearest and the canst and the seemeth and the beholdest. Do you all talk like that? 1611 English? No. My wife loves that version, the King James. Anybody here still use it? Okay, you don't need to repent. You just need to talk to my wife. She understands you. Okay? I'm gotten to where I can't hardly get through that, okay? But if we're going to learn to talk like Jesus, how could we, if we studied the King James, and we might come up with these kind of words, or we could quit talking. That would be my solution to talk like Jesus. Just shut up, Fox, okay? Or maybe we should study the Gospels more, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Or we can follow 2 Timothy 2, verse 25, show ourselves approved unto God. We could take Acts 20, take the whole counsel of God. Or, what did God, through Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, teach about our speech, our tongues? So, when Jesus talked to his enemies, when he talked to the religious rulers, when he talked to the hypocrites, when he talked to the unrighteous, what did he say? He was without sin among you. Let him be the first to throw a stone at her. Remember that? The woman caught in adultery? I mean, they had her dead to rights, should have stoned her, and then Jesus says this. That's a different speech than I would have used. Again, they said to Jesus, do you not say rightly that you're a Samaritan and you have a demon? Now that's the religious rulers against Jesus. So what do you do when people say that about you? What's your reaction? What's your speech? They said to Jesus, now we know that you have a demon, again in John chapter 8. So therefore they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. So when Jesus met the Pharisees, his enemies, what was his reaction? What's your reaction when you meet your boss and he's on your case? What's your reaction when you come home and you did the wrong thing? Or you brought the wrong stuff home? What's our speech? How do we handle that? To be like Jesus as he meets these enemies, and people are actually calling him vile names for their culture. You have a demon, and worse than that, you're a Samaritan. Now, we got some words like that in English that we use down south about other folks and other cultures. You know, and we don't use those because they're not politically correct. But they used those on Jesus, and what was his reaction? So how do we talk when it happens to us? I was in Sigurd, Utah, as the board plant superintendent, and they brought me in from California. Utah is a Mormon state. Everybody in the state is Mormon. And so in Sigurd, Utah, it's a little bitty old town in Utah. They had a gypsum wallboard plant there. And so out of the plant, out of 100 employees, the plant manager was a Lutheran. The quality guy was a Baptist. And I was running the production department, and I was a member of the Church of Christ. So what do you do when you're the only Christian in the whole town, and you're only the Christian in the whole plant? What's your speech like? Well, it seems like when I came in to take the position, there had been a guy that had been working there for 30 years, and he thought it was his job, and it was supposed to get his promotion. And so I walked in, the new kid on the block, and I'd only been with the company 3 years. He'd been with the company 30 years, and he figured, hey, that's my position. And they brought in this guy from California to take the job. So he really liked me. So what's my speech like dealing with someone that hates my guts because I came in from the outside? Remember now, the environment, we're all Mormons. And if you're a non-Mormon, you're a foreigner. You're from outside. So being the good Christian that I was, I brought in a coffee pot, a 50-pot urn, and put it in the lunchroom, because Mormons don't drink coffee. And so now the third guy in command in the plant is bringing in the coffee pot. It took about a month, but pretty soon I had 50 people drinking coffee. That's what Jesus would have done. The office manager is also a Mormon bishop, and so he's trying to teach me how to be a Mormon, and I'm trying to teach him how to be a Christian. And so I'm sitting there blowing smoke, and this is 1966. The Attorney General had not yet said cigarettes were bad for your health, okay? So I was smoking. And so Mormons don't smoke. They don't drink coffee. And so I'm blowing smoke in his face and drinking a cup of coffee. How much influence do you think I had? What was my speech like with that kind of environment? You know, Jesus was nowhere in the picture with it. I mean, that was the tacky-tongued toad doing that nonsense. And that was back in 65. Then in 75, I got to come back from furlough and from Thailand. We'd been over in the mission field for 5 years. And so the church there asked me to start up a bus ministry in Nashville, Tennessee with the church. And so we ended up with 3 buses and 150 kids they're bringing in. And for some reason, the pulpit minister thought I wanted his job. I just came there temporarily, and now I'm going back to Thailand. But all of a sudden, I'm in trouble with the preacher. So what do I do as the new kid on the block, and I'm going back overseas, had no intention to get his job, and he thinks I'm after his job? What do I tell the elders about him? What's my speech like? What good things do I have to say about that environment? We're in Chiang Mai, Thailand, northern Thailand. I've been in the country for 15, 20 years. And guess what? There's some missionaries that don't like each other. Did you imagine that? And so it's Thanksgiving. We're working in Lampang, which is about an hour from Chiang Mai. And so there's one hotel in Chiang Mai that has just a fantastic Thanksgiving turkey meal. Everybody knows about that. So Gene and I, on Thanksgiving Day, drive to Chiang Mai. It's about an hour away. And go to this hotel to enjoy Thanksgiving dinner with turkey and all the trimmings. The only place in northern Thailand you can find it. And I'll be, as we walk into the restaurant, if there isn't an older missionary sitting there having Thanksgiving dinner with his wife. And I light up like a Christmas tree. Wow, I haven't seen them. Say, well, so delighted to see you. And she says, who invited you over here? And I said, well, you know, glad to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. Said, why don't you go away? We want nothing to do with you. What do you do with folks like that? We're all part of the Church of Christ. We're all working for the same purpose, spreading the gospel among Buddhist people in Thailand, and some brother or sister blows you off like that. What would Jesus do? Well, you know what I was going to do. I'd go, wow, right in the tacky-tongued toad, or what? Talking like Jesus. What's our experience like when we get challenged with situations like that? So here's the problem with our talking in James chapter 3. If we put bits in the horse's mouth so they'll obey us, if we direct their body, behold, the ships, they have rudders. Okay? So the tongue is a small part of our body, yet it boasts great things. And so James illustrates things like this. The bridle in the mouth of a horse. Great big multi-100-pound animal controlled by what? This little small steel bit in their mouth. That's our tongue. Or the rudder on a ship. Very small thing on the very end of the ship, but it controls this great big massive ship. What's this one that got in the storm the other day? The Anthem of the Sea. 168,000 tons. The third biggest ship I think ever conducted, and it's still controlled by what? That little bitty piece of steel on the back end. That's the rudder. And of course the fire began with what? A stroke of lightning or one match, and then boom, we got this great horrendous forest fire. That's what James is trying to tell us, the power of our tongue. And so there it is. The tongue is a fire, the very word of iniquity. The tongue is set among our members as that which defiles the entire body and sets on fire the course of our life and is set on fire by hell. Actually, I took this picture of Roy last week. What are you all laughing about? Roy, is that you last week? Have we all had days like that it got away from us? You really wish you could grab that and pull it back, but guess what? It's gone. You can't change it. And that really wasn't Roy. That was a picture of me without my glasses, okay? Anybody know this guy? He's an American. Ran for vice president. Ran for president. I can't remember his name, but he's the guy that invented our climate change.
Al Gore.
Who? Al who?
Al Gore.
Al Gore. Wow. The tongue defiles the whole body. It's responsible for making man a sinner. Jesus said, it's what comes out of the mouth that defiles the man. And so you wouldn't see this, but actually the effect of his speech has been that. It's created chaos all over America. It's why we have all this ecology junk and all these tree huggers. I hope there's no tree huggers here. Whew, I'm safe, okay? Because my speech will get me in trouble too. Biggest passenger plane now is this Airbus 380, but it's actually controlled right here in this little cockpit, right up front, okay? And that's really the comparison of our tongue. That little bitty instrument in our mouth controls this whole 197 pounds, just like it does on this modern airliner, the Airbus 380. So James says the tongue is a little member, but boasts great things. And the Greek word is in the present active indicative tense, which means it continues to boast of great things. So once it starts bragging, guess what? It goes on and on and on. Any of you all know any Texans? Texas is that big state down in South, okay? Anybody here from Texas? Are Texas kind of proud of their state? On occasion. About 365 days a year, they're proud of their state. We went overseas the first time with 3 families, 2 from Texas and 1 from Arizona. And guess what? Everything from Texas is better. Yeah. I don't know why, but it's just their attitude, their speech is that Texans and anything in Texas is what? Is better than what? Than anything else. And it wasn't that they were boasting so much, it's just a state of mind. I mean, they really believed. Now, I'm from Arizona, and we don't brag about nothing. I mean, you know, we just exist. But Texans love their state. And that's not wrong, but you just think about that. You know, the attitude. The tongue is a little manner that boasts great things. So how do we tame that tongue? James 3:7, every species of birds and birds and reptiles and creatures of the sea is tamed and has been tamed, but in verse 8, no one can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil and full of deadly poison. Wow, so we can tame big cats, lions, but we can't tame the tongue. Why is that? Good question. Well, I came up with this solution for Gene. How long do you think that lasted? I thought it was a good idea. She wasn't too proud of it. And as you've heard me talk, it's probably I that needed the bridle and not her. James says, that, or actually the Psalmist says, the tongue is like a deadly snake. They've sharpened their tongues like serpents, adders, poison is under their lips. Wow. That's kind of a really tacky comparison between our tongues and a deadly viper, a deadly snake. What's the greatest venom of the tongue? Did Jesus ever talk about gossip or slander? Who had a nose that grew every time they told a lie? Was it Pinocchio? And who's this young lady here? Going to be the next president of the United States? And she got a nose as long as Pinocchio? It's a shame that doesn't really work. How long would my nose be today? How long would your nose be today? And I wonder how long Hillary's nose is going to be when she becomes president. So how do we match up with Jesus as we talk about our tongue and our speech, the fruit of our lips? Do I spread rumors? Do I always say good things? You know the truth on that. Do I like to hear about scandal? Do I judge others just on facts or on the truth or on the gossip? Do I encourage others with rumors? Do I proceed my conversation with, don't tell anybody, it's just between you and me? Do I keep confidential information confidential? Do I gossip? Do I feel guilty about what I say about others? Gene and I were talking about Roy last night. What do you think See? Isn't that neat? I mean, it's just human nature, right? Do I gossip by consent? Do I think before I speak? Do I always try to build a person up in my conversations? When this weekend is over, and then you go away, is what Fox say encouraging or discouraging? Positive or negative? Do you want to follow his example or Jesus' example? Yeah. We're trying to do what? We're trying to match up with the Lord. So here's 16 sins of the tongue, of our speech. We don't have time to go through all 16. We just think about that. All the things that the Bible talks about that come out of our mouth. Even has the power of life and death. Blasphemy, idle words, false teaching, jesting, foolish talking, reveling, filthy speech. Wow. And then James continues about our speech. We're inconsistent. We bless God, and then we curse men who have been made in the likeness of God. And out of the same mouth comes what? Both blessing and cursings, my brothers. These things ought not to be. Does the fountain bring out both fresh and salty water? Can a fig tree, my brother, produce olives, or a vine produce figs? Neither can salt water produce fresh. So how is it possible that our mouths can furnish both kinds of speech? How can we who are trying to be like Jesus have both good and bad, positive and negative, blessing and cursing? Same heart. What's the source? We both got tongues. Adolf Hitler had one. Lauren Hollingsworth has one. Adolf was able to bring about World War II, result in the destruction of nations, millions of people. Lauren is now 80 years old, and today he's teaching the Bible in northern Thailand. He opens his Greek New Testament and teaches in the Thai language. Using what? His tongue. This guy was able to make all those flowery speeches, incense the whole nation, and bring on the world. The what? Inconsistent use of the tongue. So James talks about how this same mouth comes these different results. There's Ken Fox on the telephone, and there's our grandchildren. All right? The same mouth, different results. So can a tree yield this kind of fruit? Verse 12 of James, can a fig tree, my brethren, produce olives, or a vine produce figs? Neither can salt water produce fresh. So what's he talking about our tongue? If it's not in our heart, how's it going to come out of our mouth? So we got to fix the heart first, and that's what the whole lesson is about. How do we fix the heart so what comes out of our mouth would be like Jesus? So when you meet the Pharisees in Edmonton, how do you speak with them? Yeah, that's a good challenge. I'm glad you asked. So I fixed it. I've got a new improved mouth for you. I've used this and it works. All right? So if we could just zip our lips, guess what? We wouldn't get in trouble. And we'd still have that bad heart, but it wouldn't be coming out. It wouldn't be producing fruit or bad fruit. Okay? So after class, if you'd like to pick up this model, I have it available for $9.95 in the back of the auditorium. Oh, you don't want one? Well, as soon as the ladies turn loose, I'll see if how many of them want to buy one for you. Just think about that. So how do we control our talk? We got to keep growing. And I think our goal should be encourage our kids and grandkids to do a better job than their parents and the grandparents. I learned to be tacky-tongued from my stepdad. He had a thing about Jewish people. He was a car dealer in Casa Grande, Arizona. And so he and my mom married when I was about 8. And so I grew up in a car dealership. I swept the floors when I was a kid. I think he paid me 10 cents an hour, U.S. And then I graduated to $1 a day. Then I got up to $1 an hour. So Dad sold cars for a living. And one day in the newspaper, he ran an ad for his used cars. And he said, come buy a car from a gentle Gentile. And for some reason, the Jewish folks in town got upset with him. And I didn't really understand that until I had listened to his speech. And he had this word that he used called kikes. And I didn't know what a kike was. But now that I'm 76 years old, that's just a very nasty, tacky way to speak about who? Jewish people. Who did I learn that from? My stepdad. I mean, that's what I grew up. Who do you grow up with? Do you talk like your dad or your mom? Do you have their prejudices? Do you have their cultural words? Do you have those things? So I think it behooves us to do what? Let's do a better job as parents and grandparents than they did to us. Let's see if we can't be better talkers like Jesus than the folks that taught us. And I'm not blaming Dad. I'm just saying, hey, that's the way it was in that generation. Secondly, let's let Jesus be our pattern and not people. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in preacher school, we always tried to preach like somebody that taught us. Some of you may have heard of Richard Rogers. He was one of the instructors at Sunset. And he would come over to Asia and help us with meetings. We took him into Burma. We took him into Thailand. And so a lot of us wanted to preach like Richard. The only difference between Richard and us, we didn't have his mind. The guy was a walking Bible. I mean, the guy was just awesome. Okay? And so our pattern needs to be not men, not people, but it needs to be Jesus. And so when we're talking on the phone or we're talking to other people then, let's remember how Jesus dealt with Pharisees. Let's remember how Jesus dealt with Nicodemus. Let's remember how Jesus dealt with the Samaritan woman. It was always what? Positive. It's always what they needed. Nicodemus needed to be told about what? Being born again. The Samaritan one needed to know what? That, hey, we're not going to worship on that hill or in this town, but we're going to do what? We're going to worship God in spirit and truth. Needed those things. Number 3, if we keep ourselves holy, then what? We won't need the red card. And that's what's so neat about this weekend. All of you are here are doing what? We're creating that heart condition. We're talking about that heart condition. We're talking about all the way that we could be like Jesus. And so we won't be embarrassed like that, and we won't have the red card pulled on us. And then fourthly, this is for 2016, don't say or write anything that you don't want posted on Google. So along with our speech, now it's in our what? Now it's in our iPhones. Now it's in our text messages. Now it's in our tweeter or some kind of thing I don't know how to do. You know, I look up Instagram and I see pictures of my grandkids, and that's neat. But I don't know what the verbiage is that goes with it. And so before we write, we now need to what? We need to think, because once you send it, guess what? It's there forever, isn't it? And let's understand that God knows our speech. Psalms 139, before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. Jesus said your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. That's scary, isn't it? God knows exactly what's in here and what's going to come out of here. Wow. I hope he didn't have instant replay. And so our tomorrow is based on what? What we're doing today. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And I've been living testimony to that. So Jesus said, let your statement be yes and yes, no and no, and beyond anything that is what? Evil. And that was the Sermon on the Mount. Be careful of our what? Of our speech. So God gave us a tongue to do what? The Psalm says, my tongue shall declare your righteousness and your praise all day long. Jesus himself, I glorify thee on earth, having accomplished the work that thou hast given me to do. So if God made us this kind of a environment, what should we do with it? We should use it to glorify him. And so our tongue should declare his righteousness, his beauty. And so your tongue is God's gift to you. It's given to you personally to use as you see fit. The psalmist says, the Lord, open my lips and my mouth may declare your praises. Pray then, Jesus said, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Wow. So is this possible? Can you look in the mirror and see Jesus? You guys shaved today? Comb your hair? Who'd you see in the mirror? 5% Jesus? 10% Jesus? 15% Jesus? That's kind of a dumb way to think, isn't it? What we're really trying to do is what? Not compare ourselves by ourselves, but compare ourselves with how are we growing. Are we more like the Master today than we were yesterday? And it might be that this is possible, not physically, but what? Spiritually. Are we too old to grow? Anybody here older than 76? Oh my goodness. Am I the oldest old fud here? We've got 5 elders in Mesa, and guess what? I'm the elder. Does that make me more liable or less liable? Should I have more knowledge and be more like Jesus than the other 4 guys? So the longer you're at it, the better you get at it. Now that's what works in industry. That's what works in school. That's what works in the service. So the longer you're with it and the more seniority you have, the better you get at it. So that should also be true in the Church of Christ.
That's right.
The longer we're here and the longer we're serving, the longer we're living, and the longer we're being and letting Jesus be formed in us, the more like Jesus we should be. And so you look at Ken Fox and you say, well, there's about 200 pounds of ugly flesh. Got 4 eyes, hair's gray, got a little paunch on him. What did you miss? Well, that's the physical Ken. What's the spiritual Ken like? And that's what this whole weekend is about. You know, where are we at in growing? And we're never too what? We're never too old to grow. So are we there yet? Salt, light, 18 ways we can be like Jesus. So earlier this morning we talked about thinking like Jesus. And now we've talked this afternoon about talking like Jesus. Have we arrived yet? Are you ready to take the test? I'm not. Because what? I'm not there yet. So tomorrow, we had 18 ways we could have decided to be like Jesus. And so we talked about thinking and talking. Tomorrow morning, let's grow spiritually like Jesus. The young man grew, and he grew in what? Spirit. And in what rapport with people? Yeah, he had a better rapport with people as the young Jesus grew up. If that's true with Jesus, what about us? Roy?
Thank you for listening to the lesson. And we hope you were blessed and challenged by the Word of God. The South Edmonton Church of Christ meets at the Southwood Community Center in Millwoods, Edmonton, Canada. Our location is 1880 37th Street Northwest. Our phone contacts are: in Canada, you can call us at 780-902-1329. For those living outside of Canada, you can call us at 321-220-7519. Our meeting times on Sundays are as follows: 10 a.m. Bible class for all ages. 11 a.m. we meet for worship, to break bread, to have the communion, to remember the death of Christ. We sing, we pray, we give of our earnings as God has prospered us, and we fellowship one with another. Always remember, at the Churches of Christ, a warm welcome awaits you.